Hey there, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to burn down a 700R4. So, story with this thing is that it came in as part of a couple of transmissions from a good customer of mine who's up in Montana. He's got a restoration shop there, and he occasionally buys, transmissions in lots in 3, 4, and 5 or so to have me go through them and further into his projects. So, in this case of this one, he was told by the guy that sold it to him that it was freshly rebuilt, or is freshly gone through, has never been installed, just been sitting around collecting dust. And so a couple things kind of stick out for me that lend credence to that. One is, of course, this little torque converter that came in there with it. It is bone dry inside. I mean, not a drop of transmission fluid in there. And then if you can see the output shaft peeking in behind there in the corner through the extension housing, it's got a whole bunch of red trans gel, kind of coated with it. So I'm hoping that there was some decent upgrades done to this thing. I mean, given we have a small diameter converter, it's a roughly 10.5 inch in terms of its size of the front cover, which leads me to believe that it's going to be anywhere from around 2,500 to maybe 3,700 stall. I mean, any more than that, you would need to go to a 9-inch converter, and this is definitely either a 10 or a 10.5. And so I'm expecting to see some decent performance upgrades, some modifications, and some things that should be done when it comes to 700R4s that are built for either a street strip or full race type application. So at the bare minimum, like a Corvette servo, a shift kit, an upgraded 3/4 clutch pack, spacer plate drilled out accordingly and appropriately, boost valve and reverse boost valve changed, and maybe front and rear planets from a 4L65E. So those are 5 pinions. But you never know what you're going to find until you go through them. So that's the case with this one. So here's a converter. As you can see, there's nothing in it. Bone dry. So good deal there. He's going to be putting this thing in behind a big block, and it's actually going to be for his personal vehicle. I think it's going into like a 68 or 69 Chevelle. And so we're going to give him just a regular stock stall converter for that. And then we're going to go and, whatever parts that are not, appropriate for that type of application that have been installed, we're going to swap those out and put some, beefed up parts in. So I would start with a Sonic Smart Shell, and, we may do a billet servo in the, for the second and the fourth. Sonic Super Hold servos would be great for this type of deal, and wide 2/4 band and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping are already in here and still reusable. It would reduce his bill, but if not, then we'll get the parts we need. So anyway, this is 15mm, this little shift linkage bolt, 10mm on the speedo housing, 15mm on your extension housing bolts, and then 13mm for your pump to case. Another thing that I found interesting about this is that it has a 303 pump body installed. So this is a late model case, and you could tell by this upside down, U-shaped casting parting line here in the case. So if it has this, you're looking at an 88 and up. And then you can come down here and you can look at the first character in this alphanumeric codification. This appears to be an 8, so more than likely we're looking at a 1988 case. And I talk about the pump body that way because 303 is what you typically see on your 1984 late through 1987 700R4s. So anyway, 30 spline input. So I pulled on this a little bit, and it's got a very imperceptible amount of end play, which for street strip, that's exactly how it should be. You also notice it's missing its torque converter clutch orifice feed capsule. So with the 700R4s, the orifice itself, the ball that's inside there, it serves as kind of like a one-way check valve, is about, honestly, about 30 to 40% larger than that of a 4L60E. They refer to these as single feed capsules. The 4L60Es are referred to as dual feed capsules, and this is just for the converter clutch. Now, when you pull that capsule out entirely, basically what you're doing is you're sending a full charge to that clutch to apply it and hold it fast. And in a street strip and performance application, this is what you would want to do, especially if you're, I mean, I would never encourage anyone to break the law, but especially if you're going to be moving at well over 100 miles an hour with the converter and lockup, you want full charge going to that clutch. Now, in a stock application, it's totally unnecessary, may even be detrimental, but remember, we're talking about, at minimum, a 24 to 2500 stall converter, and depending on what we find inside, we may deduce that it's, you know, closer to the higher end of that range, you know, maybe in the mid to high 30s. So, you know, 35, 36, 3700, somewhere in there. One thing I don't see is the billet servo, so at minimum there should be something as far as second gear. The fourth gear is most likely stock, unless there's some sort of exotic piston that'll fit into this cover. It's got the D10 cable. We'll give them a new one. I mean, who knows how old this thing is. But anyway, that's kind of the deal as far as walk around is concerned, so let's start ripping into it. Like anything else for your servo covers, just tap it to get in behind the snap ring, and then you just kind of take it loose, and it comes out. And we'll just kind of wedge it out. And then if you can, get in behind the O-ring with a pick. You can get access to it. So it looks like I cut mine, so I'm going to grab some needle nose. Bone dry. So just standard fourth gear servo. This might have a shift kit. Although very disturbingly, this is basically just Corvette servo. So just a Corvette servo. Corvette servos are fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. Even in full race applications, a Corvette servo will do the job as long as you're not putting out just a stupid amount of power, you know, engine-wise. But a billet servo is always going to be the kind of preferred upgrade, at least in my humble opinion. But, you know, that's just me. All right. 10 millimeters on the TV cable or D10 cable bolt. And this one is kind of hard and fast. Doesn't want to come out. There we go. Now, one thing I should have done, and let me do that now. I'm actually curious to see what the band clearance is in here. So if you want to measure band clearance, what you do is you take your outer perimeter seal hole of the servo assembly and then you install the whole thing back into the case. And you can see some red trans gel assembly lube or something similar. So make sure you have your spring, and note that this is a what we call a 3-groove pin. This is the shortest kind of pin you can have in one of these transmissions. And I'm just putting some green assembly lube on it so I can hold the main return spring in place. So band clearance that I would expect to see here, or prefer to see anyway, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 125 thousandths, somewhere in there. Alright, let me see if I can do this. Okay, so once it's back in, what we want to do is press this in, and I mean, you want to have a dial indicator mounted here on the cover, but you know, I'm not going to go through that. I'll just kind of check it, and we can see visually, what kind of travel we have, and I'll do the best I can to show you. Or maybe might be better if I do it this way. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. It's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a shade more, but it looks more right than it does, excessive, so, or tight. And that's what you want to see. All right. Okay, everything looks good so far. Let's go ahead and yank off the extension housing. In fact, I'm gonna take out the seal because it's kind of a pain to deal with it later. All right, so the seal's off. Let me go ahead and yank that speedo housing off. So for mechanical speedometers, you're going to need to determine a couple things to make sure you have your calibration right, right amount of teeth in your drive and driven gear. So you're going to need the final drive ratio of the vehicle that this thing's going into, along with the overall tire size. And so that'll allow you to calculate the number of teeth you need in your drive and or driven gear. And the best resource, and this is where I tell people to go, is TCI's Speedo calculator. I'll put the link in the description so you don't have to go hunting for it, but basically you just input those knowns and you solve for either the drive gear teeth or the driven gear teeth. Your tooth count, I should say. Millimeter. Alright, for your governor cover, you want to make sure that you get in behind this thing without damaging it. So you want a flat blade screwdriver that doesn't have any grooves on it, and then just carefully get in behind until you can get this blade between the outer flange of the cover and the case. You just don't want to smack the case by accident. So come in at, I don't know, 60-degree angle. Some smart taps is all you really need. And then you can come in with a pry bar that you can hammer on and just get it off rest of the way. Alright, so one thing I don't like is this is just assembly loop. It looked like RTV for a second. So again, this thing seems like it's been sitting for ages. Okay, governor is working. However, notice here, this is the original gear. So we'll put a new gear on here. The main thing is to make sure that governor is working. If those weights weren't moving, then you take the gear off, you kind of get the valve out, you know, wedging it out carefully, and then you go in and you polish either the valve and or the bore with a bench buddy and WD-40, and that should clear up most governor related issues. So check this dimple in here, make sure it's, you know, this cover here is not caved in. If it is, replace it. I mean, we could see some, you know, it looks like I don't know, some dents and whatnot around the perimeter. So I think I have an extra one. I'm probably gonna run that instead of this one, because the one I know that I have is in like perfect shape. So I mean, that one is probably not, you know, it's probably not flawed. It just superficially or visually it looks like crap. 15 millimeter on the linkage. And we see some rust. Come here. Okay, a lot of rust there, so we'll need to get all that rust off. And we get rid of the extension housing. So as we can see, some trans gel here on output shaft. Look at the bushing. I would have expected to see a Sonex Teflon bushing in this location. Instead, I see a bushing. It looks like some animal got in there and took a bite out of it. Clawed it up or something. I want to get that out of the way for now. Alright, so here's your governor drive gear. These little clips, they're readily available from Transtar or wherever hard parts are sold in your area. So I'll have to count the teeth on that drive gear and see where we're at. See with the driven gear. Let me let that guy pass by. Alright, you always want to replace your vent tubing in these things. They tend to crack and break off. So a new one, and there are some in the aftermarket that are actually steel, and that's whenever they're available, that's what I put on. Alright, let's get it inside of this thing. So a little bit of transmission fluid coming out. See, we got one bolt missing here. Yeah, just one bolt. Very dusty, if nothing else. Got spider webs over here. It's like somebody painted the pan. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of painting the pan. Reason being is that paint acts as like an additional thermal layer that impedes heat exchange with the outside air. So you paint your pan, you already have a sheet metal pan, it's, you know, already prone to getting hot. It makes the fluid in there even harder to release or relieve itself of heat. Okay, so we have some fluid in here. What more than likely is the case is the guy just soaked all of his frictions as well as his gear parts in transmission fluid, which is what you should do. I don't soak my frictions, I do soak my bands, And I do dunk my planets and, you know, gear parts in fresh transmission fluid before I install them. It's just a basic composite gasket. All good there. This doesn't look new to me though. Maybe that's just a product of it sitting for years and years and years, but reach around over here to grab a shop towel. Filter is brand new, so more than likely he just used a lot of transmission fluid, you know, part and parcel of his rebuild process. All right, 13 millimeter on the detent roller. It's right here. And then let's see if there's any kind of interesting things done with the 1-2 accumulator. So when I say interesting things, I mean either different springs in the shift kit or perhaps a Sonex pinless accumulator. Okay, so we do have a spring that is not factory. I'm thinking this might be a Superior Tech installation, you know, Superior Tech shift kit. He does have a reinforcement plate in here. That's always a good thing. Protects the spacer plate, but the spacer plate's still pretty beat up, as you can see. So this may have been added after the fact. In other words, after he got it, but, you know, impossible to know, really. Just the stock piston. So depending on whether I can get this out or not, because I didn't turn the air compressor on, so might have to wait. But if I can get this piston out, we can see if there's any mods to the underside of it. And also check to see if it's new or if it's been reused. Yeah, I can't get it out. I'll have to do it later. We'll come back to that. That pan just needs a wipe down. Beyond that, it appears okay. All right. All right, now we're gonna take off all the valve body bolts, 10 millimeter. So valve body, auxiliary valve body. This should be 8 millimeter down there. In fact, let me get at that first. Okay. So another thing that he has done, which again, this is a huge plus because it's one thing I don't have to do, one thing the customer doesn't have to pay for, and that is he has installed a first generation valve body onto this second generation case. So what I mean by that is this valve body is from either an 82 through 87 model year 700R4. And depending on the number of switches, you can usually tell this looks like to be an 87 model year valve body. The 82 to 84s, they had pressure switches here, up here, and here. They actually had a total of 4 of them. But in 86 or 87, they eliminated 2 of them, and then they had 2 of them remaining. And then in the 88 and ups, they just had 1 pressure switch. And that's all they use to, you know, inform them of, or inform the PCM, I should say, of where the transmission is relative to overdrive so that it knows to lock the converter or not. So here's how you can tell one of these valve bodies, you know, from a later generation model year valve body is right here. Okay, if you see a hole right here in this bore, if you're maybe looking at valve bodies on eBay or some other place, Craigslist, and they don't show you the bore, you know, face on this side. If you see a hole here, it has the torque converter clutch control valve, you know, machined into it, which means you can install a TCC lockup kit from either Transgo or Superior Tech, or even from Transtar, just a basic one, and you don't have to run any kind of interior, exterior lockup kit, no wires, no nothing. Everything is controlled through the valve body as far as torque converter apply strategy is concerned. Let me get those wires off. One thing I would have done here is replace the harness. I mean, these harnesses can be kind of brittle, or they'll short out, especially if they have exposed wiring, you know, the insulation's torn or cut or whatever in certain places. But if not, and if it looks okay, you can actually reuse the harness. You know, that's not a problem with these units. All right, now I'm clear to take everything else off. So I don't see a little hold down plate for the you know, the feed tube from the aux valve body to the pump. Ideally, you want to see that. So we'll have to just go find one and put it on overhaul. Let me put this thing back together. So here's your check ball. Make absolutely sure that check ball is there when you go back with it on these. In the 90 and up, or maybe it was 91 and up, this check ball was captured. In other words, you couldn't forget it. But 88, 89, and I think early 90, they were, you know, they were like you see here. In fact, let me rip off the cover. Getting clumsy. So standard piston, standard spring. You don't really need to do anything fancy with the springs here, regardless of, you know, performance levels or not. Alright, let me try to get this thing out of here. So this is the original piston that was not replaced. It should have been. Always replace these accumulator pistons on overhaul. Most of the time they are worn. You don't really want to reuse worn accumulator pistons, not good. Okay, with a harness that looks like this, I'd replace it, like I said. But we're going to run a mechanical torque converter clutch lockup kit in this thing, so all we're going to do is just, you know, cut the solenoid off and stick it back in the bore, and that's basically it. Other than that, you do not need any power to work the torque converter clutch, you know, apply it when it needs to apply when you have one of these valve bodies. Okay, the bolts appear to be torqued to the correct spec, which is for these anywhere from 90 to 98 inch-pounds. That's typically what I do. I don't know offhand what the book actually tells you to do, but it might be that range, like 88 to 98 inch-pounds, something like that. All right, one thing that we are going to do, well, first let me look at it. This might actually have a Sonic's plunger in it. I'm going to take that off once we have this valve body off. I want to see if Sonic's sleeve and plunger has been installed. It's always recommended because, these valve bodies can be really, really worn out. There we go. All right, here's the spacer plate. Fell on the floor. So, as we can see, we have spacer plate holes drilled for high performance. Okay. So here's your band release and your 2-3 feed. This is your 1-2 and your 3-4. I'm sorry about the glare, but this spacer plate was modified appropriately based on the application. However, we're not going to reuse this because my customer has, a different vehicle, a different engine. So we're going to be looking into just getting him a nice stock converter, stock stall, I should say. And so we're going to run a different calibration. All right, I'll make sure that you're in the shot. All right, so to get the TV sleeve and plunger out, just use a pair of diag cutters. That's all you really need. And then if it's stubborn, just carefully wedge it out. I'm going to pry on it with a screwdriver. If you have to, you can just carefully tap it out. All right. This looks new to me. Let's see if there's spring in here. That is factory. I don't think this is factory. I think this might be a Sonic's plunger and sleeve kit. He does have the factory TV boost spring, and it looks like though there may be an aftermarket return spring in there, so I'll have to dig into this a little bit in more detail, but that's kind of what you would expect to see in a situation where you have a 700R and a street strip type deal. Type application. We'd want to see at least some mods done to the main TV boost, main TV boost valve train. Okay, I'm just going to fit this all back in there for now. Okay, these are the correct gaskets for an auxiliary valve body application. You can tell by all the feed orifices in this corner. So, correct gaskets were used. Okay, for your shift linkage, you need a 15mm wrench just to get at the castellated nut and take it loose. And then you have your little band here, or spacer. And then 13mm on the parking pole guide plate. Those bolts were in there tight. Tight. Like I said, we'll have to deal with the selector here, the selector shaft. It's definitely a little rusted out. And it looks like it also is going to come off or come out. So what I'm doing here is just prying against the band on the reverse input drum. And if you need to, you can just take a hammer too. I moved it a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked. Another thing you can do is just install either this nut or the original nut that came off of there, and do what you can to get on it like this. Out just to get it going. That's really in there. I'll do it later. I'm not going to mess around with it. Alright, so here are the check balls. So I get you a little bit closer in so you can see. So depending on what sort of setup you're doing or running will determine your check ball configuration. So for all the 88 and ups, you're not going to have a check ball here in the case. And the reason for that is on the separator plate. So anytime you have a bathtub like this, you need to have two circular cutouts in the plate in that location for the check balls to seat against. And if you don't have that, then you should not have a check ball in that bathtub location. Alright, so here are the two holes in question. You see you have a circular hole, but then you have a square hole. Okay. In here for the 82 to 87, they have two circular holes right next to each other. So that would indicate you would need to put a check ball there. Okay? So here we just have this one hole, and then we have these two adjacent holes. No check ball goes in this location as a result. So you see here all the cutouts for the auxiliary valve body. On the 82 to 87s that did not have the auxiliary valve body, this is missing. This is missing, this is missing. You just have your bowl hole locations for that reverse hold down plate, and that's it. Okay, this large 5/16 check ball is your what they call safety check ball. So in other words, if your throttle valve cable broke, that ball would seat and it would max the line pressure. GM started installing these, I want to say in late '84, to drive down the warranty claims associated with broken throttle cables that resulted in transmission failure. Okay, here is your 3/4 accumulator. Nothing overly fancy here that I could see. Alright, for a street strip application, this is not how I would set up the 3/4 accumulator. So what I would do is I'll take a spring like this, you know, heavy-ish, and I would take this piston and turn it upside down. Now, you can run a Sonex pinless accumulator in there, and that's probably what we're going to do with this transmission. And you have a choice of two different springs from Sonex. You have their moderate tension spring, then you have their heavy tension spring. And so I would always run the heavy tension spring in the 4th and the moderate tension spring in the 2nd. It's one spring, one part number for both the moderate, and then another part number for the heavy tension. Okay, both of those springs are better than anything from the factory, in my opinion. Okay, this actually does look like a new piston. At first glance it does. Alright, let me get this pan out of the way. Alright, so we're ready to go ahead and start pulling stuff out of the case. 13 millimeter on the pump to case bolts. So like I said earlier, he's running a 303 body here. Normally you see a 732 body associated with 1988 and up. Okay, when I say this, I'm referring to the last 3 digits on the casting number of the part. Okay, so when I say 303 body or a 152 drum, that's always what I'm going to be referring to. Here's a red flag right here for me. This bushing was never replaced. Okay, always replace your bushings in any rebuild, especially a high performance build. Okay, this should have received the wider front stator bushing that are available for these, and then it should have also received the Sonex rear stator bushing that's coated, it's Teflon coated, and it wears less. Okay, I mean, if you notice here, this bushing was never replaced, and it looks like it's about to walk out of the bore there. Okay, I'm checking the bore. I don't see any concerns with the sealing surface, but I don't know why that bushing was not replaced, or either of these bushings. So let's see what the pump body bushing looks like. The thrust washer looks new, so there's that. Alright, so in here I expect to see a machined pump, so in other words machine working surfaces on both the body and the stator. I would like to see Transgo unbreakable pump rings. A 10 vein pump is fine. He may have put a 13 vein in here, don't know yet. I would have liked to have seen the Teflon one-piece rings for 4L60Es, but these are fine. They're not certainly not going to hurt anything. But again, for performance, those are the things that I would do, and that most builders do. Just basic stuff, nothing fancy. Okay, and then the other things that we want to see or confirm or deny their presence are going to be the boost and reverse boost valves. I would minimum expect to see a 472 boost valve in here, meaning its diameter is 472 thousandths of an inch. 5 or a half-inch boost valve is optimal, but 472 minimum for anything 700R4. Again, in my humble opinion. Okay, so no unbreakable pump ring kit. That kit always comes with an improved slide spring. Okay, rotor guide was not replaced. You know, factory rings, I think, or maybe they got kind of a gold color to them here on the interior. These actually may be unbreakable pump ring kit. These may be unbreakable pump rings, but, or maybe they're performance rings, but just not Transgos, because like I said, Transgos come with that priming spring or that slide spring. Okay, the surface was not machined, so we'll have to put a machined body in there. Let's go look at a couple of the vanes. Okay, so we have two vanes here. This is the back side of the vanes. You can see the wear marks where it engaged the rotor. And then, sorry about that, this is the other vane, and this is the side that rode against the slide on the inner diameter of the slide. And you can see it's worn, it's not new. Clumsy today. So the rotor appears to be in good shape. It actually looks new to me. If not new, it's in perfect, pristine condition. Okay, I can't get the little support O-ring cover off, so I'll have to deal with that later as well. There's the pump body bushing. It looks like it has been used, abused, ridden hard, and put away wet. Literally. Okay, let's look at the working surface on the stator support. Let's dry it off a little bit. As you can see, look at that. Look how deep that groove is here. So a decent sized chunk of metal or something passed through this pump at some point in its life and gouged out that channel in there that you see. I mean, that's not even scoring, that's just straight up excavation. So this will obviously have to be machined. That also doesn't look new. All the replacement filters in these kits are all white in color. Let's take a quick gander at the journal surfaces. A little bit of wear here. You can see where maybe some bushing contact was going on between it and the reverse input drum. So this is a 570 cover, which you would see with a 732 body. So this is where you would air check your forward clutch. I should have done that, but like I said, I don't have the air on. I got to turn it on in a minute though, because we're going to have to pressure test the input drum. But let's see what sort of boost valve is in here. Stuff's falling out all over the place. One thing about this new bench that I think I'm gonna change and modify is like a trough. Like I'm used to having that trough in the front. I mean, the trough in this one's great, but it's in the back. And it's like I'm still getting used to it. This is only like the third teardown I've done on this bench. And so it's kind of throwing me off a little bit. I'm not trying to make excuses, although I am, but that's what's going on. Okay, so this is a 472 boost valve, so that's good news. But again, we don't know how old it is. We don't know if it's new. So I'll be replacing it with probably the Sonic's 1/2-inch boost valve. For big blocks, it's like I don't like to take any chances. I just like to have as much line pressure on tap as I need to that's, would be deemed reasonable and prudent for that application. So we're not going to put that stuff back in. Okay, so this is a different spring than what you typically see at the factory. He did not grind the land here. Okay, you always grind this land all the way flush to the rest of the stem, or the body I should say. Reason being is that this gives you full time line to lube, okay, especially at part throttle. So that's another thing that you always want to do in a performance, or really any application, but especially in a performance build. Alright, I think we have come to possibly our first, what I will call exotic modification. I think, and that is the torque converter apply valve. Okay, that's clearly not a factory valve in there. We got this plugged. So this leads me to believe that this was set up for a non-lockup application, which means that that converter is sitting on that other bench over there, that little one, came in with this thing, is a non-locking converter. Interesting. Alright, so for my customer, he wants a locking torque converter, so what I'm probably going to do is just simply swap this entire housing out, stator support, with one I have in stock and have my machinist resurface it. And then we'll put new boost valves and a stock lockup valve in there. With a spring setup that you would normally see in one of these transmissions. So again, nothing wrong with what the previous builder did there, because in an application like what this appears to be set up for, that's what you want to do. I mean, there's no reason to have a locking torque converter if all you're going to do is go down the track with it. But it is in conflict with some of the other things that we've seen in this transmission so far that haven't been done that should have been. So now, as we take out everything here in the case, the questions I'm going to have are, what kind of 3/4 pack is in this thing? What has been done with the band? Is it a wide band? Is it a standard band? The band clearance appeared correct. About 125 thousandths, somewhere in there. That's how it looked and felt. Excuse me. But, with everything else that I'm surprised has just not been done, you gotta wonder. Alright, one thing you want to do is just make sure you disengage the band. And yank out your band anchor pin. And then just yank everything out. Okay, so we do have an alto wideband. I think it's a wideband. You know what? Yeah, it's a wideband. Okay. So that's good. That's a positive thing. But what we don't see is either a new or resurfaced or turned reverse input drum. So anytime you run a wide band, you have to either A, turn the drum, or B, put a new one in. So we're going to do the same. We're going to run a wide band. I'm not going to use that very band. You know, like I said, I don't know what it's been subjected to or not. We're going to put a brand new one in, but you have to make sure that the drum has a fresh band surface. All right, let's see what kind of frictions we have in here. All right, either stock, high energy, or alto reds, or other. And they are stock. So stock 4L60E, late model. We also have standard steels. We do not have tubular steels from a late model 4L60E. Yeah, this is quite interesting. Fascinating, in fact. So the builder did soak his frictions. We see some light slip marks on the apply plate or backing plate for this thing. Those are no big deal, to be honest. I mean, that has zero impact or effect on the clutch's ability to function correctly. So here's your cushion plate, bottom steel, some slip marks on it, clutch, steel, so 4 frictions, 4 steels. So he did a lot of prep work with wafer pad and angle grinder on this. So these steels will not be going back in. We'll do a late 4L60E steel module or a choline steel module, one of the two. And we're definitely going to do a max pack or power pack, I should say, in the 3.4, unless one's already in there, which based on what I'm seeing so far, I highly doubt. But these steels will not go back in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this cushion plate, but the late 4L60E cushion plates are a little bit better. Okay, look how bad those bushings are worn. I mean, whoever did this had no regard for changing the bushings. I was going to say chasing the bushings. Okay, we have a lot of wear here too, in the sealing ring area. A lot of wear. Okay, I can't feel it, but you can certainly see it. So this drum's no good. I'm not going to reuse it. I mean, it's got what looks like a half-ass sort of prep work done on the surface for the band, and then bushings are shot, and the surface area looks weird. Okay, these frictions are no good. So if there's a TCC ball capsule missing out of the snout of the input drum, you can buy a new one. What I'm going to do is put a 4L60E ball capsule in here. So for anything mild to moderate performance, 700R4, you want to do that. The 700R4 ball capsule, like I said earlier, is about 30 or 40% larger in diameter, and it's considered a single feed TCC charge. Whereas the 4L60E, they made the capsule, or the ball in the capsule, smaller to quote-unquote dual feed the torque converter clutch. All right, this is a 73. Let's see how thick it is. Looks like it's about 115 thou. Check the bearing. So if you have a 700R4 4L60E come in and it's got a lot of end play, I recommend you change the bearing out. If the end play is more than, and again, this is going to be either by feel or by virtue of you measuring with a dial indicator, but if it's more than like 35 thousandths of an inch, which is the upper spec limit for these, then I would recommend you change that thrust bearing out. Because at that point, there's a lot of longitudinal movement between the pump and the two drums, and so that bearing is likely taking a beating. All right, I have to turn the compressor on, and then once we have air, we'll go ahead and we'll do a wet pressure test on this drum, see if it's any good, and then go from there. All right, we got you in the catbird seat, so you can look straight down onto the top of the drum while we do our wet pressure test. So we'll see if this thing's any good. And if you haven't noticed this already, these sealing rings, they don't look new to me either. They're not new. So always replace your turbine shaft sealing rings if you're doing an overhaul or even a refresh. Okay, it's part of the paper and rubber kit, comes in the kit, and I mean, if you don't have the special tools to deal with this, you can use hose clamps and strips of rubber to protect the ring from the fastener portion of the clamp. But there's no excuse for leaving these on there, and these do not look like they were replaced. Okay, especially these bottom ones. I mean, they look no different than any other sealing rings that have been on there for 100,000 miles or more. All right, so what we're looking for here is bubbles in the base of the shaft. So we have our 2-3 feed, our forward feed is in this location, the hole's over here, and then we have our coast clutch feed. So another thing I'm going to be listening for is any air coming out of here. Now, when you do this, you don't need a ton of air pressure. Something like 50 to 100 psi is more than sufficient. If you use too much, then fluid will go everywhere, and plus it'll be hard for you to tell if you truly have a leak or if you're just spraying fluid everywhere. All right, so we'll do the 2-3. Okay, that seems good so far. There's a little bit of fluid here, you may have noticed it, and as air is whooshing either in behind or coming out of the nozzle, after being trapped in the circuit, it's blowing that fluid. Let me wipe that off. That could look like a leak right here at the top of the journal, which would be damn near catastrophic if that was the case. Okay. All right, let's do forward. Ooh, we got some bubbles. Right there. I will pop it and we'll test it again. Yep, and bubbles are reappearing, so this drum is no good. I don't like to see any bubbles. Look at that. Look at that. See, oh, it popped. I was going to say, let's see how big we can make that one bubble. There's no air coming out of the snout whatsoever. Back to the 2-3 feed. No air whatsoever coming out of the snout. The reason I'm listening for this is actually due to another forum member in one of the forums I frequent. He's also a builder. He's just getting into it, but he's got several 4L60Es under his belt, and he posted in a thread telling I guess whomever, me, everybody, that when he was air checking one of the drums on one of the cores he was taking down, he noticed that there was a whole bunch of air coming out of the snout. And I said to him, I said, you know, I don't think that's normal, but I've never really listened for that before. I mentioned and you know, replied that I would let him know what I found from this teardown. You know, informed that I was going to be tearing down one of these drums, and so that's kind of why I'm listening for that. But interesting question. Now, you know, now that we're on discussion forums, and another forum which I'm a member, one of the other members had posted in a thread that he was going to be rebuilding his 4L60E for the first time. He had a whole bunch of questions. He was trying to, you know, kind of pick my brain on what I should be, you know, what he should be thinking about, considering, you know, part selections, build procedures, red flags, things to watch out for, you know, all the basic stuff that somebody relatively new to transmission building, you know, would want to know. And one of the things he mentioned was he watches 2 YouTube channels primarily when it comes to transmissions, mine and the Transmission Bench. And this is what he said. I haven't verified this myself, but no reason to doubt him. He said that the Transmission Bench guy told viewers in one of his videos on, you know, 4L60Es that if the turbine shaft sealing rings look okay, to reuse them. All right. I mean, I don't want to badmouth other builders, I really don't, but that is not good advice. Okay, if you're new to transmission building and you happen to watch that same video, do not reuse your turbine shaft sealing rings. Okay, and that's why I was, you know, kind of making a point to discuss it a minute ago. You know, every once in a while you'll just get bad advice, even from very large channels. I mean, the Transmission Bench is a huge channel on YouTube in the transmission building space. I mean, I think he's got well over 100,000 subscribers. I have less than 10,000. So you might think, well, what the hell do I know? But you know, YouTube channel size aside, these turbine shaft sealing rings got a lot of miles on them, and visually it can be hard to tell if they're worn or not. So why take the chance? They come in the kit, just replace them. All right, we have one more circuit to test, and that is the coast clutch. And I'll point out something else that I see done to this drum, which is actually a good mod if you haven't picked up on it already. But let's do the coast clutch first. So plug the forward feed. Okay, that's good, and I don't hear any air coming out of here either. There is a converter O-ring on here, which, if that TCC valve that came out of that pump is a non-lockup conversion, then there's no reason to have a converter O-ring on the end of the snout like this. Alright, so here's the other mod that I noticed. So you notice here, it looks like the feeds were opened up a little bit and kind of countersunk. Okay, here's the coast clutch, this is the 2-3, and then this is the forward. That's actually a good mod. I've not actually done that mod. I've heard about it, but I've never done it. I guess I never thought it was worth doing, but maybe I could start doing it because, I mean, at least for high performance, for stock it's not necessary, but for high performance, it allows charge to move into that port, into that, into that circuit a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more volume, a little bit better flow. It's no different than detailing an engine block and kind of countersinking and smoothing out your oil passages in the lifter valley. Same principle. Eases drain back. All right, let me get rid of this before it spills out all over the place. The way I've been handling stuff today, I wouldn't be surprised if I did something like that. Okay, I'm going to reposition the camera. I'm going to put the drum, clutches up in the hole in the other end of the bench, and then we'll go through those and check them out. All right. Okay, let's see what kind of clutch pack is in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So finally, some positivity, some good developments. Okay, let me put this back in and see what the clearance looks like before I speak too soon. Get it on an angle so you can kind of see it. And don't worry about the drum. It's going to the scrapyard. Clearance in here looks to be about 50 to 60 thousandths, which is a little on the high side for high performance. Ideally, you'd want to be between 30 and 40, regardless of how many frictions you have in here. No load release springs, and it looks like Alto Reds. So this looks like a max pack, or a power pack, excuse me. So you have your support for the ply plate. Okay, this is an all-o-matic apply plate, but this looks like an Alto power pack. These frictions appear to be in good shape. That looks okay. These are 75 thou thick steels. Let's see, maybe not quite that thick actually. No, these are 62, 63 thou thick. 75 thou thick would be the factory 700R4 steel, flat steel thickness, so would not apply to the max pack. 3, 6, 8. So this is a very, very good upgrade. The only thing I would do in addition to what you see here is choline steels, and that's what we're going to run. I don't know what it is, but the smell is not transmission fluid. It's like an oil-based solvent or something, a petrochemical-based solvent. And I mean, you obviously can't smell it through the camera, but that's what all the parts smell like. The whole case smells like. All right, the guy took multiple steps back, but he took a big step forward with the Alto power pack. Now he's going to take another step back. He has a plastic seal here at the input-output shaft junction. Never, ever, ever put a plastic seal in here. Those like to leak, and they are worthless. Always put a 4L60E Viton seal in place of that stupid plastic seal that comes in the kit. I take that one that comes in the kit and I chuck it in the trash immediately. For you eco-conscious folks, I actually throw it in the recycle bin. So here's the bearing. Bearing feels fine. And here's that stupid seal. Dude, look how hard that is. That's not going to seal nothing. It's not going to seal shit. Alright, let's see what kind of frictions are in the rest of this drum. Input sprag. It's very difficult to tell if the sprag in question is new once it's been installed, but there should be a new sprag. Should not be the pre-existing sprag. The race looks reasonable. Just a little bit of 400 to 600 grit sandpaper, and I'll reintroduce cross hatching, so that's all that really needs. Sprag actually does look new to me. I'm still going to put a new one in here because it looks new. I have a piece of paper that shows the Sprag was purchased, and then some evidence to suggest that whatever Sprag was purchased was actually installed. But, you know, prima facie, it does look like he replaced the input Sprag, which is, for these transmissions, you always do that. You never reuse the Sprag. You could reuse the low roller clutch, though in a high performance deal, I would have replaced that too. And you see some wear here on the inner race. Some heat. Seems like maybe there was some starvation of oil. Okay, so this is no good. I would not reuse this. I mean, I could feel a little bit of scoring up in this area here by the underhead radius. No good. The outer race is fine. The inner race is no good. And the Sprag, while it's new, if you don't have absolute proof, then I would not suggest you gamble on using it. Overruns, these are factory frictions. So, again, here's my take. If this was a street strip application, you want the best frictions and the best steels you possibly can put in this thing. Especially if you're at the track, you're doing some burnouts to warm up your tires so you can hook better, and you're going to be doing your burnouts in manual low and shifting up to 2 if you have an automatic shift pattern equipped transmission, like most of them. And so when you do that, these clutches come on, and in manual low, the low reverse clutches come on. So you have more hands bringing to bear to deal with the work that's being asked of them. So burnouts put a ton of stress on the transmission. You don't want to do your burnouts in drive or even D3. Just go all the way down to manual low, then upshift to 2 if you have to. But for that, you want the best frictions and the best steels that money can buy if, racing is going to be, a big part of the equation when it comes to how the vehicle will be used. So same deal with the forwards. These are factory level, and these look like they're kind of old, as in they were produced a long while ago. That's just the impression I'm getting. I'm thinking, now that I'm thinking about it, in terms of when this was overhauled, I don't think this was recent. I think this was like a long while back, possibly decades, and sat in somebody's garage or warehouse or shop or whatever until it was finally dug out of the ice and sold off to my customer, and it made its way into his hands. Okay, these are used steels, which again, no big deal. This is your wave plate, looks fine. The forward steels look fine to me. Let me see if I can clean them up a little bit so you can actually tell. Got a lot of nasty fluid on them. Nasty, nasty. Whoever did build this transmission soaked not only the frictions, but must have soaked the gear set as well. And again, that is what you should be doing. So kudos to the individual for doing that. Like I said, I want to be balanced in my review here. I don't want to just bag on the guy. If there are some things that he did do well, I'm going to call that out and recognize him for it. But when there's things that he did not do or I would have done different, I will mention that too. Alright, these steels are fine as far as use in a stock application. We're going to put a full steel module on this transmission. We're going to do cholenes in the low reverse, the reverse input, and the 3/4 pack. I'm going to just buy a whole new max pack. I'm not going to reuse those frictions that came out of there. You never ever want to do that, especially if you think that the transmission build that you're taking apart was done decades in the past. So, all right, here's another big no-no. You can see he reused the aluminum pistons. I mean, unless this was built prior to 1997, he had access to 4L60E late model pistons and the return spring, and that's what he should have put in here for a street strip application. So it could be that we're going back to the early 90s, 80s, I mean, this thing might have been thrown together in like 1987 or something. Well, actually, that would be impossible. It's an 88 model year unit. All right, we'll force the rest of this stuff out with air. So 2-3 feed. So yeah, all aluminum pistons. So we will put our 97 up bonded steel and rubber pistons or molded pistons. Let's see what a ply ring is in here. It's either going to be a number 4 or number 7, unless he used an unmarked, which he certainly may have done. The unmarked apply rings have the tallest legs. And then the number 4s, which are on the 700R4s from 88 to 93, they're kind of in the middle. And then the number 7s, which are in all 4L60Es from 93 to 2013 into production, are the shortest. So the reason why you never want to use these aluminum pistons is the forward piston in particular likes to crack. And then the third clutch piston, I mean, is not, you know, not too different than the molded steel and rubber piston, but the lip seals on these are nowhere near as effective. I mean, structurally it's fine, but you know, you have the advantage with the sealing surfaces when it comes to the later design. And then the reverse input, the coast clutch piston, I mean, again, I've never seen one broken. It's always these that like to crack. Now, for high performance, if you're going to run the factory drum, it'd be a good idea to install a Sonex reinforcement kit. And that kit comes with a billet aluminum coast clutch piston. It also comes with a reinforcement sleeve that you install onto the drum in this location here. And that allows the drum to handle a lot more power and torque than it otherwise would be capable of doing. All right, reposition the camera a little bit. So we have what appears to be a little bit of surface rust on the return spring for the 3/4 clutch. I mean, no big deal or anything, but what I don't see are high rate return springs. No high rate return springs here, and no high rate return springs in the forward return spring assembly. So again, for street strip, it's pretty much mandatory. You want that high rate return spring kit installed so that your one, you can mitigate centrifugal apply for your 3/4, and 2, you have a nice crisp 3/2 downshift. And then you also have really good engagement out of drive and into reverse if you have those high rate return springs. Alright, always check your forward piston housing. This is a source of leaks, especially if the clutch on the transmission that you're working on came in all burnt up. So, you know, forward clutches being burned is not common, but a lot of times they are attributable to this piston housing being worn here at the sealing surface or cut, as you saw in a 4L60E autopsy video I did, you know, where the forward piston, the sealing surface was just literally machined because metal had passed through in here and kind of almost like as if it was on a lathe, cut the sealing surface and made it razor sharp. So, you know, you always want to watch out for that. Alright, these will go to the scrap yard. And then we will install, I mean, I keep these aside just to have them if somebody needs a refresh or something on a 700, but I never use them in full rebuilds. We'll keep this aside. It appears to be fine on a little rust that he's going to knock off, and then we'll put high rate return springs in there. And then the forward assembly will be the late model style that works with the bonded steel and rubber pistons. All right, if this drum was to be reused, you want to check that bleeder ball, make sure it works. Shake it. And same with the pistons, you want to make sure the bleeder balls and the pistons work. Okay, check your journal surfaces down here all the time. Always make sure that they're not gouged or scored. Okay, a really worn out bushing on the rear of the stator, like this for example, although this isn't worn to the extent I'm talking about. If you have a real worn out bushing there, you'll have a torque converter clutch burn up. Okay, it'll slip and then eventually it'll burn. A 4L60E, it'll translate to code P1870, and you know, you'll try all kind of things to get it to go away. You know, valve body fixes, replacing the valve body, you know, whatever, doing a rain dance, but you know, it won't go away. You'll clear it, it'll continue to set and store because that stator bushing in the rear is worn out, like really, really worn out. All right. Let me go ahead and deal with this stupid selector shaft. Okay, this thing's been bothering me the whole time. Okay, I don't like it when they don't come out like this. It was making a fool out of me. It made me look stupid. So, what I like to do with these is, in the event I can't get it to come off, you know, in other more conventional methods, I just put the little nut back on, and then I'll take a slide hammer. Okay, so I get a little bit better view. Now I want to do this now while there's still a little bit of weight to the unit. So I'll just take my slide hammer and then I'll wrap it out. I mean, it sounds harsh, you know, here in the case, you know, the report of the case, but it's actually not harmful to it. But that thing was vexing me. I was terribly vexed. So bonus points if you know the movie reference. If you do, go ahead and put it in the comments. All right. Okay, so we see 4-pinion planets. At least the front planet is a 4-pinion deal. Here is the sun gear. Again, bushings have not been replaced in the sun gear, but it looks fine to me. Otherwise, all right, gonna have to get a new glove momentarily. This thing was a walk around. All right, let's have a look at our planet, our ring gear, and our reaction shaft. So same factory thrust washer. It's our bearing. Let's check our planet. No side play. Now check vertical. Appears fine. I mean, this one's probably on the outer edge in terms of what's acceptable, but not too worried about it. Bearing feels good to me. Check our splines. They look okay. Check our housing. Anytime you see bluing or other signs of heat damage, just toss the whole planet. I wouldn't even mess with trying to rebuild it. Just toss it. Okay, reaction shaft and ring gear. and no bushings have been replaced in the reaction shaft. So these lugs you really want to pay attention to, because a lot of times they'll be, you know, worn horizontally. I mean, you can kind of see the wear pattern, but if that wear were to progress to the point where ridges are being cut in, then, you know, eventually you'll have the 3/4 clutch dragging, or in really, really bad scenarios, you'll have a no apply situation, although admittedly that's pretty rare. Okay, check these engagement splines here. They can be worn. And of course the bushing's worn. I mean, he definitely lubricated the gear train. I'm thinking this thing was built back in the 90s. I mean, we're kind of spoiled today when it comes to transmission aftermarket support and what's available. I mean, we have rollerized sun shells and, you know, high speed, high performance billet parts for, you know, every hard part in most transmissions, at least most common ones. You know, all kind of options that, you know, we have to make these things live and survive in high use, heavy duty, go fast, all out race type environments. But, you know, back in the day, like when I was in high school, we didn't have any of that stuff, or at least transmission builders at the time. I wasn't building transmissions in high school. Alright, so we have a sun shell, and as you can see, it was already starting to wear aggressively here at the junction between the neck and the body. So if this thing were to be put back on the road, this probably would have failed within less than 20,000 miles. No good. Okay, we have a bronze thrust washer. A bronze thrust washer on the center support. How about that? I have never seen one of these in a 700R4. And I thought I've done a lot of them, but apparently I have not. Apparently I haven't seen anything yet. I mean, this is what you put on a TH350 in a race in the center support. So we're going to go back here with a Sonic Smart Shell that has its own race. It's fully rollerized, and we'll pair that with an 03 and up reaction shaft that's also rollerized, so that we basically rollerize the entire middle of the case. You know, again, it's easy to kind of judge and make comments when it comes to part selection, but if this transmission builder that went through this thing did so literally in the 90s, he didn't have any of that kind of stuff available to him. So, I mean, bushings were available. He should have replaced the bushings. You know, don't get me wrong. There's definitely judgmental errors here made in this, you know, when it comes to part selection for this rebuild. Okay, this is a factory bushing. We installed the Sonic's wide sun gear bushing. Again, not anything he would have had access to. And I'm just guessing that's when this was built. I don't know. I mean, you know, anybody's guess is as good as mine. Messing around. I just want to get this thing up off the bench so that I can have a little bit better access to pounding on the output shaft. All right. All right, center support, rear planet. So it has like a little oil slinger here. they put these in some of the heavier duty applications, I believe starting in 88 and up. So F-bodies, Corvettes, I think certain versions of truck and or SUV chassis got them, you know, some submodels. Maybe some of the Caprice police cars. Okay, this Planet feels okay. Splines look okay. I don't see any damage to it. It's a very dark brown color, but I don't know if that means anything. Okay, center support, clutch bearing surface looks okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the low roller assembly is very, very rarely bad in these units. I can count on my two hands, all the fingers that I have, the number of times I've seen one come in with a bad low roller. You know, one that's broken. Just look at your splines. Around in this area here, these splines, sometimes I'll see either aggressive wear or chipping. So you want to pay, more so than here, you want to pay real close attention to these. Okay, journal surfaces look okay. You have your worm gear for your governor. Make sure there's no foreign objects in the snout there. That would be not good. Okay, here is our low reverse pack. So these steels were reused. So the clutch module is reminiscent of what was put into 4L60Es starting in '96. At least the reverse input clutches. And the low reverse. I mean, they're a little bit different now than, you know, the ones you buy from TransStar or whomever, wherever you get your soft parts, but the reverse inputs are 4L60E clutches. Okay, we got one more, well, technically two more hard parts. So we have our bearing, and I'm really clumsy today, I don't know why. Bearings feel good to me. So check your teeth, they look good. Check your lugs, make sure there's no cracking. Splines look good. Okay, one thing I tell people, if you live in an area where there's a lot of grades, mountainous area and whatnot, a lot of hills, you want to be real careful when you go to park your vehicle, if you're on a grade at all. You don't want to just simply, take your foot off the brake once you've thrown it in park and let the entire weight of the vehicle slam into the parking pole, because there is what I will call a decent amount of travel sometimes, that when you put the vehicle in park, it will, the tires will execute damn near one full revolution in some extreme cases. And if that's on a grade, then the entire weight of your vehicle is going to slam onto that little parking pole, which is, what keeps you in park. I've seen some of these come in to where the parking pole is just shattered. And they, customers say, oh, I can't put the vehicle in park. I don't know what happened. Well, are you using your e-brake, or are you pumping your brakes if your e-brake doesn't work to allow a gradual engagement of the parking gear when you put it in park, yes or no? And if the answer is no, then you kind of have your explanation. Anti-clunk spring. All right, so we have, and this is just a piece of the case connector. The The only thing that's in here is the low reverse piston, so we'll go ahead and get the clutch spring compressor tool in there, take that snap ring out, and then we'll go ahead and remove the piston via shop air. Let's see where it's at. So the two ends are right here, roughly 8 o'clock. I gotta turn this toward me so I can see what I'm doing. Sorry, tried. But you really have to get almost inside the case with your snap ring pliers to have a decent chance of getting on that thing and getting it out of there. All right. I hope to God that the camera can see where I'm pointing, but this is going to be your low reverse. Okay. So, if you're ever wondering whether or not a 700R4 case takes an auxiliary valve body or not, and it's a 1987 model year unit, before they started casting the case with that big upside down U-shaped crease on the passenger side, you can look right here in this area of the low reverse clutch, okay, or your low reverse feed passage. So in 1987, they started using auxiliary valve bodies in 700R4s, but they did not change the casting other than right here. So if you're looking at an empty case and you maybe need to replace your case and you need an auxiliary valve body case, you know, you can just check right here to see if the case that you're looking at is acceptable for use with an auxiliary valve body or not. Because the non-aux valve body cases do not have this little dam here. Okay, if you don't see a little dam here, then it does not take an auxiliary valve body unless you modify, like some guys will put JB Weld here. All right. So this was written on it. That almost looks like something that either a salvage yard or maybe a hard part supplier would write, you know, for inventorying purposes. Somebody painted this thing after the fact. It's another thing that annoys me. Like, don't paint the case unless you have it all apart. Now that may not have been the builder, that may have been whoever owned this thing, or, you know, whoever was the customer. And for all we know, the customer and the builder could have been one and the same. It could have been, you know, a DIYer that put this together. Who knows? But I don't know that a DIYer would do some of the mods that we saw in here. At least not somebody that's relatively inexperienced. All right. So that is the teardown. We have the case pretty much completely empty. This thing is going to get a complete and total overhaul. Okay, that means full cow kit. We're going to run high energy clutches everywhere, and I'm going to do Alto Reds and Colleen's, you know, Alto's power pack in the 3/4 clutch. We're going to put a new sprag assembly. I'm just going to get a whole new good used input sprag gear assembly, new 29 element Borg Warner sprag, all new bushings, the aforementioned Sonic Smart Shell. We're going to be looking for a good used drum or a new drum. Those drums are not that expensive, so kind of saves me the hassle of having to install a little TCC orifice bowl in the snout, which takes off 2 seconds, so I guess I'm being super lazy here. We're going to do high rate return springs in the in the forward drum, along with late model bonded pistons. So that'll get its own 97 up return spring. Transgo shift kit in the valve body. I'll have to confirm or deny to a 100% certainty that throttle sleeve and plunger is in fact a Sonex product. If it's not, we'll put one in. And I'm going to ask him if he wants to do a billet servo assembly. If so, then we're going to do the Sonex Super Hold servo, the 2nd and 4th gear component. And that's what I would recommend. I mean, this thing's going to see a big block, so I want to make sure it has all the advantages it could get. New reverse input drum with a wide 2/4 band. We'll probably do like just the same alto red band that you saw come out of here. Not that exact same band, but one just like it, just brand new. And an 03 and up reaction shaft so that we can rollerize that portion of the case completely. So, what else? All new accumulator pistons. I'm going to do a pinless accumulator kit in here too, and I'm going to fuck around with, basic accumulator pistons. Other than the forward. The forward will get a basic piston. He doesn't need to have a Sonex in there. The pump has to be machined completely. In fact, I'm going to replace the stator pump cover half with another one just like it, because that one was modified to do something. I think it's a non-lockup kit, but I'm not 100% sure. I hardly ever install them. Last one I did was like 6 or 7 years ago, so I don't remember exactly what they're like. Transgo makes the kit. But it comes with a valve. I don't think that's it. I think that's something else. And then we got to figure out what driven gear we need for the speedometer, because I don't know yet what his gear ratio and tire size is. So I'll have to call him and ask him for that information. Alright, steel module for everywhere else other than the aforementioned Colines. And then paper rubber filter. I'm not going to use that other filter. So, Transgo unbreakable pump ring kit in the pump. So we want to give the pump all the advantages it can get. Billet rotor is not really necessary as long as your pump clearances are where they need to be. Between 1 and 2 thousandths is what I managed to for the rotor and the slide and the pump body working surface. Then I think we're good, or the deck surface I should say. The working surface is where the pump actually sits. Alright, well, as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to film this build because it has to go together within 3 days. So filming adds literally about a day to 2 days in assembly time because of all the takes and retakes and just things you have no control over, stuff that comes up, and it just takes a while. But the parts and the procedures that I've outlined should should give you an idea of how to build one of these for like a big block type application. 1/2-inch boost valve from Sonex, 300 reverse boost valve, Transgo spacer plate. We'll add that to the pile of parts as well because we can't really use that other spacer plate. It's been mangled. I will put that 1-2 accumulator base plate back in. That's a good add. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Again, greatly appreciate all your support. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.